Hello, how are you? My name is Francis Fox, and we have an additional attendee, which is my dog. My history is very unusual and very difficult, and yet perfect for someone who would like to learn how to augment their psychic abilities quickly. It turns out that I have a superpower. I didn't declare it. The US government did. There's scientists in the military that worked on me since I was a little kid because I was in a secret military program that has not been declassified yet. I'm told that many of the stories that I have shared with my family and friends through the years are in the series called Stranger Things. I haven't watched it, so I can't say that that's the case, but they have no reason to lie. I have a superpower called the power of induction. And what it means is that when you're in my presence, whether physically, over the phone, or here in a chat, you're connected to me, and my aura, my vibration lifts yours up, not to the gates of heaven, but it lifts up your psychic abilities. I used to have friends that would say to me when they called, we need to get together for dinner. I need to see you more often. I can't see anything anymore. And they weren't talking about needing reading glasses. So just simply, even if you learn nothing new in this class, you will have received a boost to your psychic abilities. We're not here to prove anything to anybody. We are starting assuming that you know that psychic abilities exist, that you know that it seems like almost everyone has them. So belief systems are very interesting. And one of the reasons why humans in the modern age don't really know or understand or afraid to admit to or think it's something really special, the reason that has happened is because people in power, not just government people, not just those kind of authorities, prefer that human beings not access their natural abilities because there's a lot of power in being psychic, which means there's a lot of power when you have that extra information that's in the other dimensions. So a lot has been done to keep psychics down throughout the centuries. They were burned at the stake because they were witches. They were humiliated, etc. Today, they're not really respected in the business world. They do have psychic development classes, but they're called creativity classes. Isn't that interesting? They're afraid to use the word psychic. And in terms of what the government did in terms of psychic abilities, the most interesting thing that they did in terms of the public was to put out via Stanford University a program that had been around forever in the secret hallways, and they called it remote viewing. This was in the 90s or 80s that they turned it over to Stanford, and it was a unit of soldiers that were adults already that were taught this technique of remote viewing, and then they opened it to the public, and they said it was proven that it wasn't really good, but it was good for business. And it was because, and I'm going to say it, a lot of people that were involved were setting themselves up to do business behind the scenes. I am a consultant for companies, and I work behind the scenes in the sense that I do strategy, and there's no company is going to give out their strategy openly because that's just not the way you do business. It's not the part of my work that I adore. I adore this that I'm doing, working with regular people and trying to get as many regular people primed to augment the human potential. Because these psychic abilities are the human potential. You develop them, you're developing your human potential. And it doesn't really matter whether you get an IQ test and it's higher or low. It doesn't really matter. You will have more information and you'll be able to make better decisions. In the program I was in, a lot of the kids were, their IQ in terms of testing was driven up 50 and 60 points, which of course is totally impossible. It's not impossible. Now, the way it was done was very abusive. And that brings me to, how do you create a good psychic? Well, throughout history, most of the really famous psychics, because of the level of their skill, had one or two issues. They either had an electrical accident, at which time they woke up from it or repaired from it, very psychic, or they were abused. So in terms of the program that I was in as a child, they used both techniques, trauma and electricity. Now, the trauma, why would trauma make you more psychic? Because when you are being traumatized and you're not able to escape, you escape into your mind, and then you go deeper and deeper and deeper. You become more psychic. The studies say that women are generally more psychic than men. And the explanation, and I believe it's accurate, is that women have needed to have this extra information in order to protect themselves and their children. They didn't have the physical strength or the power that comes with being a man through the centuries, which was not, that same power was not given to women. But we, in this class, and if we continue to do this, we're not going to use we're not going to use electricity on you, nor are we going to abuse you or create trauma for you. But I did want you to know that those are the two best ways to have a great psychic. So if you see somebody who's a really, really good psychic, there might be something in their history that would explain that. But please don't confront them, because if somebody, I am sure there are many exceptions, and there's really no need to be creating problems with any information that I'm giving you here. But I've spent a lot of years observing it. And that is my conclusion. So about myself, my father was Cuban. He was in the US military. He ended up in Germany after the Second World War. They had the American military were going through everything that the Germans had left behind, all their experiments and their programs, and I ended up being born in Germany. My mother was German, and I ended up being put in the program basically from birth. And then I traveled with my father and the rest of the family to different places across the world where he was sent, and then eventually I ended up in Miami. So I know why it is that I chose the abusive life that I ended up living. And it was before I incarnated, I knew what it was that I wanted to do as my mission in this incarnation, which was to give people the ability to access this information, to augment the human potential, to help people have superpowers, and to help them to be magical, to do magic. And in examining all the options, which all of us have, not just me, I'm not special that way, what I saw was that before I incarnated, that in the East, they had a lot of this knowledge, but it wasn't necessarily being used for the betterment of everyone. And it wasn't focused. It was just baseline knowledge, which is good. Now, my assessments of these may be a little off, because I've actually never looked at it this way, other than now talking to you. And in the West, in the military, there's tremendous focus and tension. Therefore, I could get further with that knowledge. I lived a year in Tibet, sent by the US military. With that knowledge, together with the discipline and the training and the focused intention, I could position myself to where I would be able to reach a lot of people, which I have not done yet. That's where we're at. That's where we're going. So, Eastern wisdom, Western power. Because wisdom and information without power doesn't help you a lot. The definition of the word power means to do and to act. It does not include abuse. You can abuse your power, but it doesn't include abuse. By the way, that's channeled in the right leg. So, I have this superpower. You should be more psychic by the end of the class. I have no idea whether you're going to be able to be aware or not. We have never measured it, and we probably never will. But it will be easier for you to augment your psychic abilities when you are in my presence, whether we are talking about psychic abilities or doing any psychic training at all, simply by being in my presence. And again, it sounds like I am complimenting myself, or I'm not using the right word, but that's simply a fact. And why on earth would I beat around the bush? Because you see, when everybody is psychic, there will be no more game playing. People will simply say things that are true and what they are, because everybody will be able to tell when they're saying something that's not true. Such as me going to a board meeting in the city of Coral Gables because of something that was happening with the building that I lived in. And they would call people up and then they would speak to them, the not jury, but the people that were on the board, and make decisions. And I remember this was the first time that had happened to me. There was somebody speaking, and they were speaking very elegantly and very convincingly, but their mouth, it was all black energy. It was coming out of their mouth. And I said to the person I was with, that person's lying. And they said, well, how can you tell? I said, well, look at their mouth. It's all black. And they weren't depressed. So in the future, you'll all be able to see that when somebody's lying, and when somebody's being very sweet, but they have all this red, like cloud stuff coming out of their mouth, they're angry, even if they look like they're so sweet and everything is fine. So when we all get psychic, people aren't going to be able to hide things. But the main thing they're not going to be able to hide, which is what's going to make me really happy, is they're not going to be able to hide how miserable they are, or how much you hurt them when you said that, or what it is that they really need. We're all going to be able to know what we're doing to people, what they're doing to us, what we need, what they need. There'll be no game playing. People will be able to be real, because when they're not real, people are going to go, well, why are you saying that? It's so obvious it's not true. Well, but they didn't just say it. No, they don't need to say it. Their body, it's not body language. You could say it's body language, but in the other dimensions, but it's not. And body language, by the way, that's very good to look at. It's a very powerful source of information, but being able to see in the other dimensions is even more powerful. So I gave a class about a year ago that was opening your third eye. Whoa. When I went into the third eye, I got a lot of information, which I'll share some of it with you. And if you know Spanish, that class we put online, because I did not want to hold back that information. It turns out that we have an extra gland in the third eye that has not yet been discovered by science, but that's okay, because when you're psychic, you discover a lot of things that science will take 10, 20, 30, 50 years to be able to validate. And then you can actually believe in it or discuss it in a cocktail party without people thinking you're crazy. Okay, so in the class, I discovered that we have a gland that has not yet been discovered in the third eye in this area. And that gland is where human superpowers are. And that gland was supposed to not rise from the dead, but be revealed in the 1960s. Apparently, there's beings that supervise the evolution of this planet and they have thoughts and opinions and plans and calendars. I never believed this before either. So it's okay. Just listen, just take it in. Don't accept it as true, just listen. And so in the 60s, in terms of human history, this gland was supposed to be discovered. It was supposed to open up. And human beings were supposed to access their superpowers. But something happened historically, and the powers that be from off planet determined that human beings really could not access their superpowers. It would be a disaster. And what happened was that after the Second World War was over officially, modern scientists decided to experiment with the atomic bomb, and they dropped it on Hiroshima. Well, the Japanese had already surrendered. Why were we dropping a bomb on a country that had already surrendered? They were experimenting to see what would happen. My goodness, why not? Makes sense that the beings would say, we can't give these people more power. Who knows what they're going to do next? So in the 60s, we did not get access to that gland, which I called mimosa, and there was a reason for it. If you look up the definition of the word mimosa, I don't remember right now what it is. So we didn't get our superpowers. And apparently it wasn't till about a month ago that the off-planet beings revealed everybody's going to have access to the superpowers, and may God save us. They didn't say that last statement. I said it. So your superpowers are in your third eye. But let's talk about what superpowers are, because being psychic, that's part of it. The history of the planet is very, very interesting. We go to school and we have to study all sorts of things, all of which is supposed to be true or accurate or useful. And part of what we have to study is mythology. Why do we have to study mythology? Well, it's not true. Those things didn't happen. People did not have superpowers according to modern science and education. But you have to study mythology anyway. Why are we studying mythology if it's not accurate, it's not real, it didn't happen, and it's never going to happen again? We don't know. Well, you just have to study it. Well, you know what? There were times on planet Earth when the superpowers were developed, and all those I'm not saying every single one of the stories in mythology are true, but what is in mythology is true. It's part of our history. But because we haven't accessed it, we decided that it never happened. But we have to study it anyway. So again, you don't need to accept that. But the least you should do is say, you know what, that's true. Why did I have to study mythology if that really is not accurate? Oh, the symbolism. Well, what is symbolism? Symbolism is on the physical dimension, a thought, a concept, a physical thing that is representing something else. It's really representing something in the other dimensions. So the mythology is symbolic of what? Of men that are 7 feet tall and have 3 eyes? It turns out that years ago, scientists said that they found cells that belong to the eyes in the middle of the forehead. So that maybe at some point in history, human beings did have a third eye. Okay. We have to be patient with the scientists. They were badly beaten up by the powers that be, particularly in this part of the world, by the Catholic Church, who let them know when science began 600 years ago that everything that was non-physical was spiritual and the domain of the church. So you have all these scientists running around that are only able to study what is on the physical dimension. And then you have a beautiful group today, the physicists, that what they talk about is God and string theory, which is what God energy is channeled through that ends up being a human being, but we'll talk about that later. So many years ago, when I was doing mainly corporate work and I had very few clients and followers, but I earned a ton of money with what I did, I would give weekend classes, and it was called becoming a master diagnostician, because people wanted to be able to diagnose the way I diagnose. But the first time I gave the class, I thought, oh, this is a farce. I'm not teaching these people how to become a master diagnostician. I'm telling them that they already are, they just don't trust themselves. So that's what I'm going to say to you today. You're already psychic. You just don't trust yourself. You want validation. You want to know psychic abilities exist? Yes. This that I felt, is this, I made that up. Why would you make that up? And 3 other people looking at the same thing made up the same thing. So what I realized is that I'm really unblocking people having to do with themselves and trusting themselves and trusting what they see and what they feel. And that I had to teach it in a group because I couldn't teach one person, because we needed to read something and then everybody would say what they saw. And of course, the people that were perfectionists would say, no, I didn't really see anything. And then somebody would say, no, I saw this, I saw that. And they would go, oh, yes, I saw that. You said you didn't see anything. Well, I wasn't sure. Protecting their self-esteem, not wanting to look bad, not trusting what they did see. So psychic training, trusting yourself, trusting that image, trusting that you would not have made that up. Why on earth would you make that up? Why would you make that up? Now, right now, in me, all of this is lime green, which is the color of healing. It's a great color. I'm really flowing. I'm really enjoying this. I haven't done this kind of a chat for a bit. So I'm going to look at all of you. And what I see is also lime green here. But then I see here black. And here I see red. So why don't we open this up, which is crown chakra, which connects to God. And not that I want to make you more spiritual. It connects to off planet. Okay? So it's safer to say God than to say off planet. But whatever the connection is, it has to do with less physical and more spiritual. So why don't we go ahead and open this up? Keep both of your feet on the ground, flat on the ground. Wiggle the sphincters of your anus. And you're basically doing an exercise in your root chakra, which is the energy center at the base of the spine. Breathe. You're already opening up here. Breathe, and then just send a telegram to this part of you silently with the words, I trust. I trust. I trust. It's working. And why the words I trust? Because you don't trust yourself. Most of you don't trust yourself. Now, a lot of you are already working with me on a continuous basis. So you've learned to trust yourself and to enjoy it and to just go in there, see it, and say it, and in a group process, and then to kind of use that in your personal lives. But continue to send a telegram to this part of you, kind of the hairline. Breathing. Don't repeat the words out loud. I trust. I trust. Okay. Continuing. If you're of the Christian tradition or Catholic or Baptist or whatever, Jesus Christ left us a message symbolically with his crown of thorns, which is around the third eye. And basically what he was saying was, it's a little bit dangerous in this area. And it is, because it turns out that our third eye is very invaded by beings. And when we started working very intensely with the third eye a couple of months ago, we found a lot of beings had set up living quarters inside everybody's third eye. The third eye is about seeing in many dimensions. It's about wisdom. A lot of our memories are in our third eye. If you had abuse when you were young, sexual abuse or physical abuse, that memory is probably in a part of your body, but also in the third eye. And it may be the reason why you want your third eye to open or to be more open, to be more operational. One of the memories that's historic, that has to do with past lives, that really messes up the third eye is if you lived during the Inquisition and you had to do what the Catholic Church told you to do. Not if you were a witch and you got burned at the stake. That will also mess up your third eye, but not as badly as if you were a priest, a cardinal, a keeper in the jail, and you had to abuse to kill people that were accused of being psychic, of being the devil, of doing magic. There's something about that situation that completely ties up the third eye. So one of the things that everybody should do, and we're going to do that now, is to do a mantra for 5 minutes to clear. I'm wondering if I should limit it to the Inquisition. No, I probably shouldn't, because a lot of people have third eye issues because they were burned at the stake or they were accused of being a witch. So let's go ahead and do the first unblocking of your third eye. Okay? And I'm going to put the music therapy that was on, but the mantra, give me a moment while I write it. And the mantras are repeated in silence in the head, and you breathe out through your mouth. This is an intention mantra. Okay. Please, God, help me with my intention to heal the ancestral vasanas of my third eye. What does that mean? The word vasana is a deep injury on your mind. It's the basis for karma. So if they plucked your eyes out because you were psychic in another lifetime, that's a deep injury. And the karma would be that you would have issues with your eyes, or that you might not want to be able to see so that nobody can accuse you of being psychic again and working with the devil and all the rest of that. So with this mantra, if you have an Inquisition past life associated with black magic, but you being the person that is abusing the person that is killed, if you were abused, that also will come through, but the big abuse is if you have to do something that goes against your heart. That is when you get the most damaged, more than if something is done to you. If you are a victim, you are less damaged at the level of the mind and in terms of karma than if you did something to someone else. And that's the case in this lifetime. And that's going to come up a lot in the next few months, having to do with revelations, where more and more of us are going to be remembering yuck stuff and ugly stuff that we did. Okay? But right now we're limited to third eye. So the mantra is repeated silently in the head. You blow the air out through your mouth, both feet on the ground. You may feel hot. You may get sweaty. You may yawn a lot. You may end up releasing gases, having stomach aches, nausea, feeling like vomiting. You may get memories. Okay, so let's do that for 5 minutes, okay? So go ahead and start. I'm going to get the video and try not to make it too loud. You're releasing a lot of anger from the third eye. That's what I just sketched. Okay. When you started with the mantra, this is not what I wanted to show you. You started to release anger from your third eye. That's very good. The third eye is when it is congested and you repress the emotions you're congesting it with, which is generally anger, you get headaches and you get migraines. People that have migraines have a lot of fire, a lot of frustration and rage in their third eye because of what they can see, but they can't do anything with it. So what I just picked up anyway, you're releasing a lot of red. So I would continue to do that mantra because I don't think there's any way you could have taken care of this just simply in 5 minutes. Some of you may have had memories or started to open something up, but you definitely started to release. But what I picked up, and it makes total sense, is when you have a child, and we're all born with these skills that are in our other energy bodies, and the child says he sees something, and you say, no, he didn't, because that doesn't exist in the belief system that you're willing to teach your child. Basically, you're dumbing down your kid. And we were all dumbed down, not myself because of being in this program, but we've all been dumbed down. Our IQs are lower because there is so much information that your mind streams can access that's not on the physical dimension, that when people deny that information that was accurate, basically you end up being dumbed down. You're less bright. You could have been a lot brighter. And then it's the creatives and the scientists or people that become very famous or do their artwork, etc. They are the ones that are allowed a free flow of this creativity, or they're eccentric and they have enough money, they can be eccentric and they have all this extra information, etc. So the denial of our psychic abilities has really dumbed down civilization, but you notice that there's all those secret organizations. And I'm not going to start naming names, but one of them would have been the program that I was in, where they are looking to develop and access that, and they end up creating geniuses because that's what they did. As a matter of fact, when they were looking for funding for the secret program that I was in, they said that it was to help the American children because what they learned there would help the American children to be brighter. Well, I don't really think that was the intention. That never happened. They did get their funding. But the extra information you get with psychic abilities really puts you over the top, wherever it is that you're competing. So anything that you can do to keep that lens wider, regardless of what the outside world is telling you, is really, really important. And I know if you wanted to go deeply into the absolute, let's open the third eye, let's explore, experiment, I want for you to have what I feel that you need to have first, which is a basis of information to stand on. And then we'll try something in a minute for you to understand all of this bigger picture. I'm not recommending them, but there are herbs that are used for religious ceremonies that are very mind expanding and augment your psychic abilities incredibly, even when you're no longer taking them. And I'm not talking, I'll give you an example, which is the one that I'm familiar with. When I was in this program, they used LSD on me. I don't recommend it. I don't do drugs. I would not take anything having to do with this mind altering ever. And I don't, and I haven't, and I won't. But I remember many years when I used to go to a lot of cocktail parties, and I remember meet people, whatever, and then I'd meet somebody and I'd look at them and I'd go, did you take LSD? And they'd always go, no, of course not. I mean, that's just, and then we'd continue to talk and I'd say, you sure you didn't take LSD? And then finally they'd go, yeah, I did, but I don't want to say it in front of people. But how did you know? Because I could see their mind, and their mind was like this. And if you look at a lot of the people in this country that have contributed the most to music, to literature, to art, they have done mind expanding drugs. I am not recommending it. Because with that, if you don't have a solid basis, and most of us in this country don't, it's going to put you in a place where you might not even get the benefit of those mind expanding herbs. And I am just not recommending even those for people, because you have to be grounded, you have to be landed to take advantage of it. And even those that have given us the most in terms of literature and art and all the rest of that have had pretty rocky personal lives. And honestly, I'm here to help people get their daily lives in order, get their home life in order, get their relationships with their partners and their kids in order so that they can be happy. But I have to give you that information because from my point of view, from what I have seen, it's totally accurate. Now, going back to the third eye, which is where human superpowers are, fluoride is not good for the third eye. It dries out the third eye. So it makes you wonder, are they promoting the fluoride because it's good for us? Or they're promoting the fluoride to keep us dumbed down? We don't know. But what I could recommend a toothpaste without fluoride might be a good idea. But it's in the water, it's every place. And our third eyes, by the way, are very desiccated. By the way, it literally is almost like an eye, and it has this, like an eyelid almost. And then it will go up when you're awake and aware, and then this will go down. I have a friend of mine who's legally blind, and her lid and her third eye is down. And I have permission to tell the story. You know why it's down? Because during the Second World War, she was a Jewish kid and she was put in a concentration camp, and she had to watch as they tortured and killed a lot of the little kids that were there with her. So she shut down, comes into this incarnation. She doesn't want to see anything. She's legally blind. She can't drive. She can't go out by herself. And she's refused to do the asana exercise to see how much she could recuperate her vision. She still doesn't want to see. So everything is like a decision that you make at some subconscious level, including how psychic you are going to be. If they burnt you at the stake, or they took your eyes out, or when you were a kid and you did see the spirit world, which everybody knows exists, all the religion you belong to, they know that it exists, but it was denied. And then you had to question yourself, were you like maybe dumb, or why would you lie, etc.? All of that will put you in a place where you're not going to be very happy with your ability to see the other dimensions. I shut down my third eye, believe it or not. I did all my psychic work without being able to actually see in the other dimensions. I would feel, I would know, I would understand. I could smell, I could speak to spirits, but I couldn't actually see. Because when I was a child, the bad spirits just did a job on me. They played so many games, they made me so miserable. And I had a miserable life, so the level of spirits of my vibration, which was miserable, was a very low level of spirits who were really bad. So I didn't want to see it anymore. So I shut it down. And it really wasn't until about 10 years ago that I actually can see in the other dimensions. And I'm a remote viewer. So we human beings are very, very interesting and can do very powerful things to ourselves. So if you want to be more psychic, you can be more psychic because you were born that way. And if you weren't born that way because of a previous incarnation, you can clear it. And then the whole training, which is really minimal, has to do with just proving to you again and again and again that what you saw, that you thought maybe you made it up, or you could say, I'm not sure I saw it. You saw it, you didn't see it. Then it gets proven to you that you weren't sure you saw, you actually did see it, and it was actually accurate, and 3 other people in the group saw it too. And as you do that, you become more confident in yourself. That being said, there are certain astrological signs that make it easier for you to be more psychic, and those are the air signs. which would be the Aquarius, the Gemini, and the Libra signs. All of those are mind signs. They're air signs. Air is mind. And they have a tendency, a strong tendency to be much more psychic and to also flow with their psychic abilities more. Because there are other signs that can be very psychic, but they won't flow with it. They're just constantly putting it down. The air signs generally work with it more. So give me a second to assess where all of you are at. I see right here, this is all green. It's like your third eye chakra, which is like a chalice, like this, but turned on the side. So front to back, not up and down. And it's very large and very green. So how about if we do one exercise and then we end the class? And the exercise is going to be, you have your 2 feet on the ground. You breathe into your root chakra. Make sure you're seated very comfortably, not jutting out of your seat the way I tend to do when I'm speaking. And have the intention to take your consciousness into this area. Normally I would say this, but I'm actually seeing it's like that. It's a tube, which it is a tube, the chakra, with a funnel on each end. So go ahead and go in there as if you had become little. That's a psychic ability. It's very easy. You become little and you go into that space. So go ahead and do it. Go ahead and breathe. Okay, so it's a little bit dirty inside. So I think I want for you to take, you know, those little mini rakes. You know how you have rakes that you rake the leaves on the lawn. And you know they have little mini ones when you're gardening that aren't like this, they're like this. I want you to go into the third eye with a mini rake, and I want you to start raking the walls because there's a lot of gook there. And just breathe and just don't think about it. And don't say, am I doing this or not? Just do it. Close your eyes, breathe, intend on going inside this tunnel that I see in you with a little rake and start pulling stuff off of the walls. And actually, when you pull it, it pulls out long strings, which are the mind strings. So this is kind of clogged up by strings, mind strings, that are 18 inches long, that are right in there and that are like when you clog a drain with hair from when you comb your hair over the sink. In the center of your third eye chakra, it's red. So I want you to go to the center of your third eye chakra, and I want for you to place there a piece of a glacier, like what you saw in the video, a piece of ice from North Pole, South Pole, whatever you want. I want you to place it in the center to cool down your third eye because there's too much anger in there. There's too much fire. Just keep breathing. Now, I don't know if you can feel it, but can you feel kind of like, it's almost as if it's another person, but it's not. It's you, a part of you you're not familiar, that part of you is kind of either waking up or paying attention and it's kind of looking around. I don't know if you can feel that. Might be a very interesting feeling for you. The center of the third eye has a structure. Do you know what a vajra is? A vajra is, in Buddhism, it's a long tube, and at both ends it has a round thing that's made out of metal. And it's really interesting because there is something of, of that shape that's there underneath that congestion that you are now melting the fire away from. It's called the Vajra. And Elon Musk put a photograph of his bedside table this weekend on Twitter. And of course, the whole country is talking about it because there were 3 cans of Diet Coke on it, plus 2 guns, which they're not sure they're operational, and a Vajra. And we know that he's one of the brightest men. He's going to end up being called one of the brightest men in history. And he has a Vajra by his desk. And now we find a Vajra inside your third eye. And it's a Buddhist, and I don't have the ability to pull it down and to show it to you here, and I don't have one near me. But you should probably buy one. It's about that long. And I don't remember what it represents in Buddhism, but you should find that out too. Interesting. So you can, if you like, on the chat, you can go ahead and share, and we're basically finished. You just did an astral travel. If you went into your third eye, you exercised the superpower to where you had the ability to go from large to small simply by intending it. There's a list of superpowers in Hinduism. They're called siddhis, S-I-D-D-H-I, which are superpowers. And these are 2 of them that you're doing right now. And the people that follow all the stuff that I'm putting out, that I'm learning along the way with them, called mantritas, they have a lot of these superpowers. And it wasn't until one day we were looking for superpowers and we were already using them. And I went, wait, that's a superpower. We need to remember to put a name on it just so that we can be happier with ourselves. So go ahead. And if you want to share something or ask a particular question, you're more than welcome to do it on the chat. This is no longer as green as it was. I don't know if you got more thoughtful. I'm looking at it. That's why I was quiet. So if in the next minute there are no questions, and we will go ahead and end it. And I hope this was useful as a basis. And I hope the information giving you the historical perspective will let you know that, yeah, everybody's psychic. You can be psychic. They can be really developed, and it makes a huge difference in your life. Oh, my God. And people say, I got a feeling about that. That's psychic. Now, Plato and Aristotle both said that the important intelligence on the planet was the intelligence of the heart, which is a psychic ability called being claircognizant. You have clairvoyant, where you can see, clairaudient, where you can hear, clairsentient, where you can feel. That's the worst one because you feel other people's negative emotions and it can basically destroy your evening. And claircognizant is when you instantly know something. And that's what is called the intelligence of the heart. And the people that we admire the most in terms of their intellect were the Greek philosophers, supposedly. And they said that that psychic ability, which they did not call a psychic ability, was much more important than the intelligence of the head, which is what we practice here in the United States, in this country. You go to the university, you learn this and this and this and this. So developing psychic abilities today is very intelligent because it gives you confidence in your instinctive knowing, and instinctive knowing is what's going to save the planet. And it will be what will save you if there's a natural catastrophe or an economic downfall. That instinctive knowing, where you're not going to get validation from science or the government or some agency, may make the difference between the survival of someone or the survival of your bank account or your business. And by the way, all the businessmen that I have met And I have worked with some powerful people on the planet, people who own countries. They are all very, very psychic. And they do not for a minute question that extra information that they get. So please, allow it to flow in you. I'm Frances Fox, and I can see there's no questions. So thank you for joining me. And we'll see what other classes we give that you might want to participate in. Somebody's asking a question. You saw an eye watching you. Okay. The face of a man. I felt a little pain in my forehead. You're welcome for the healing. Could any of you see that Vajra, that object in the center? You should look it up. And it was covered with the astral particles of fire. Okay. Now I'm going to ask, because there are many of my followers that are here, which I would have thought that most of this that I'm teaching today, you already know it. Did you learn anything new? The people that I'm familiar with, that have come to a lot of my classes, not the people that are new. Did you learn something new? Or did you just get it in a more systematic and organized way? Because when I do the regular chats, which we do almost every night, I give out a lot of information, but not systematically. Your ears were funny, like, oh, they felt like full of air? Okay. Oh, she's reminding me. She worked with a product that we do sell, which is the amethyst glasses. I think it's like $85. You should go to sleep with them at night. We sell them with a little bag, a cotton bag. You put it in the cotton bag and you put it over your eyes, and you get one of those stretchy headbands. You put it across it so it holds it against your face. Makes a huge difference. It keeps your head much more clear. The nights that I forget to sleep with them, I wake up a lot foggier in the morning. And we also have it, if you don't want that shape, we also have the amethyst in this shape. And I'm actually going to make one that wraps around your whole head, because why are we protecting and healing the front of our third eye and not the back? But we don't have that yet. So Beatriz said it was cool seeing myself inside as a little person. And she wants it in Spanish. Okay. It was like a tube. Well, the Vajra is a tube in the center. I have to read up on what it is that the Vajra really... There was a Vajra in the middle of your third eye. So we need to find out what the Vajra is about. Okay? So thank you for joining me. And we do our daily news from other dimensions, in which we give a lot of information. And you also get a little healing, okay? You did learn something new today, Zoe. That's good. Okay. Bye. Hola, ¿sabían ustedes que todos los cristales tienen intenciones? El amatista tiene la intención de proteger y fortalecer el tercer ojo. El tercer ojo es responsable por su habilidad de poder ver en las otras dimensiones, lo cual es sumamente importante hoy porque somos mucho más galácticos y multidimensionales que nunca. También el tercer ojo es responsable por dolores de cabeza y por migrañas. Si tienen esa tendencia, esto los puede ayudar muchísimo. Los recomendamos que lo usen durante las meditaciones y durante sus mantras. Lo van a disfrutar.
We are ending a cycle on planet Earth, and it is time that you understand your relationship to good and evil in the history of the planet. I have a story to tell you. It may help to explain a lot of things in your life, but also help to give perspective on the history of the planet. It may change the way you view the transformation planet Earth is going through now. I had a session years ago with a client who was a really nice man, but with considerable darkness in his life. I asked how I could help him, and he said he did not know. The time with me was not his idea. I said I would look at his planetary history to find the most important information that would help him to understand himself. I went back to his life in Lemuria, the civilization before Atlantis. An angel appeared to him saying, "We need your help." He responded in that lifetime, "I'm willing to help. What do you need?" They said what they needed was difficult, and he responded that he was willing. They said a darkness had come over the planet, and most souls were too weak to handle the darkness. He repeated he would help. What did the angels need from him? They said they needed him to take on the darkness, as many souls were too weak. He responded, "I will do it." They told him it would be hard because he would not remember, and he might get lost in the darkness. He said he would do it for the others. Widen your lens, and it might help you to understand the violence and conflict today on planet Earth. Perhaps the most important aspect of your life in relations to others is not that you are Jewish or Christian or American or French or Iranian. Perhaps the most important aspect of you is that you are from planet Earth, and there are others out there that are different and have different intentions from those who are from here. Perhaps now we really need to understand what is going on. We are in a final battle between light and dark on planet Earth. We need to widen our lens to know who we are and who our true enemies are. We are multidimensional beings. We have parts of ourselves in several dimensions at a time. We are energetically structured like the tree of life, which is the backbone of our multidimensional system. Our individual sacred tree of life is our chakra system. Its central axis is the trunk of the tree of your life. It is your holy grail, with its funnel-like structure at the top, drawing in off-planet energies, and a funnel-like shape at the bottom, drawing in earth energies. Unfortunately, the top of your tree of life will be filled with the energy of Xibalba, what the Mayans call the path to the underworld, and scientists call the dark rift because of the alignments of the planets, which complete on December 21st, 2012. Unfortunately, the bottom of your tree of life, your holy grail, is already susceptible to the energies from Xibalba due to Earth's broken Brahmavara. Who is going to take on the darkness from the broken Brahmavara in the Gulf of Mexico? Who is going to take on the darkness that will enter the planet via the supermassive black hole that is aligning with planet Earth? Who will go to war to process the violence and conflict that is pouring onto the planet now? Who will kill and maim and be killed and injured to protect those of us who are not strong enough to process those energies? If it is true that Jerusalem is to be the site of the final battle between light and dark, good and evil, then the peoples who spiritually chose to carry the dark energy poured onto the planet are sacrificing themselves for all of us. Jerusalem, Israelis, Palestinians, Colombians, Iranians, all willing to battle for all of us souls, sacrificing themselves by processing the energies of conflict and violence so that we can be free. As in Lemurian times, a darkness is now entering the planet, and there will be souls who will sacrifice themselves for the rest of us.
Hello, my name is Frances Fox, and I'm a trained remote viewer. All my psychic skills have been trained and honed and perfected, watched, documented, understood statistically in terms of my accuracy. I have had a very difficult time since I came out of what you would call seclusion, hiding. I was in a secret program, not my choice. I was placed in there since I was born. I got out of there because I couldn't take it anymore. And the abuse was costing me, having to do with my health and my happiness. I chose all of this before I incarnated because that was the place in the US military on planet Earth where I would be able to learn the most, having to do with my mission, which is give extra information from the other dimensions so that perhaps we can have a life that has less anguish. By the way, that is the definition of a Buddha. So if one of your goals in life is to try to diminish human anguish, whether it's in a particular group or a large group or a country, then you are classified as a Buddha. Isn't that interesting? Today, I have some very interesting and very good news. Maybe some of you won't think it's that big a deal, but I would like to show you some sketches, and my reference point for what it is that I'm telling you now is a map that NASA shared on their there's a newsletter that comes out called spaceweather.com. Excuse me a second while I get it up. I thought it was already up here. Okay. NASA shared a map, and I'm going to put it up and I'm going to read what the map says. And then I'm going to show you what we have been mapping here, because we, in this chat, 7 o'clock at night on several platforms, the most important one, which I consider would be X, we have documented this process before it happened. Here's the map. And now let me read what it is that this is about. For that, I need to find it. Here we go. From NASA. Rocks and soil electrified by the superstorm that was across the United States on May 10th to 11th. There was a marvelous display of aurora borealis during the biggest electromagnetic storm in decades, but something else was going on. Strong electrical currents were surging through rocks and soil. The biggest voltage along the US eastern seaboard and in the Midwest were as much as 10,000 times normal electrification. A map from NOAA and the US Geological Survey shows some of the hot spots during the early morning hours of May the 11th. So what are we talking about here? Look at this. This is also a map of what's going to be the zombie invasion, because the map is showing where there was too much electricity, which means too much of the fire element, which means we have too much of the energy of the food of what we call the spirits that we refer to as the devil. Fire is the food of the devil. So how interesting. But what does it have to do with our chats? Well, on our chats, I sketched every day. And this is what I sketched on the 18th of April. This is Earth underneath. And let's keep going. I'm going to show you several. This is also the 18th, which we have ETs. We have spaceships coming in, plus the Earth is still green. This is good. 18th of April. This is May 14th. Those solar flares that electrified the soil and stones 10,000 1,000 times more than normal. After that, those were on the 10th and 11th. This is the 14th. Look, we no longer have this. Green underneath us, we have this. The X's are curses and the red is fire. That's on the 14th. Here's the 15th. Here's the 17th. We got even more. We have more spaceships. Here's the 20th. We never got back to the green. And this is the 20th also. This is fire. The X's are curses. And I don't know what this line is, but earth energy is above it. Ascension is lifting up. And this is the 21st. This, I don't know what that interrupted line is. And then we have this interrupted line here. I don't know what that is. So basically we have sketch. Oh, and this is the 23rd, which would have been yesterday. The fire is almost like reaching up. We are here encapsulated in 3 different bags, and then we have this. It is almost as if we were in utero and we're going to go through the birth canal and have a rebirth. What does that mean? I don't have all the answers, but definitely we are in the ascension process. Definitely the ascension is going to pull us away from what is called the electrification of Earth. And what is that all about? And I'm sorry if this is boring to anybody, but today I spoke with a Christian, somebody who was doing something in my home. And I asked her what the Bible said about the element fire. She said, well, in the end, the elements are supposed to be totally out of control, devastated. I don't remember the exact word, but I will get it and I will put it on my social media. So even in the Bible, they say that at the end, the elements are not going to be balanced. What does that have to do with you? Well, again, for the 50th time, you cannot have insomnia, anxiety, hatred, impatience, emotional violence, physical violence, murder, and suicide unless you have an excess of the fire element. And if you have too great an excess of the fire element, you're going to have a lot of the extreme of that, which is suicides, murders, physical violence. And that's what we're having today. But it appears that some of us, at least, are being lifted up and away from that fire. Who makes this decision? Your frequency, your vibration makes the decision as to where you are going to be. What does that mean? That means that if you are outside a lot, have understood the whole concept of the element of fire and have understood the concept that you need to balance the elements, so you make sure that you spend enough time in nature and you're not too long locked in rooms that are all radiating electronic devices which radiate fire, that you are living a balanced life. Now, if you didn't know about the elements, it's a little bit difficult for you to do that, which is where we're at today. All the medicines in the planet, except for modern medicine, the core basic contention is that health is a balance of the elements. Modern medicine, which is only 500 years old, not 5,000 years old like Ayurveda, or 2,000 years old like Chinese medicine, does not even know what the elements are. They cannot help you with that. But it's as simple as looking at your day and going, okay, so where are we going to have dinner? Why don't you have dinner outside? Get a restaurant where you can sit outside. Where are we going to go to vacation? Maybe don't go to a big city. Maybe go to the beach, to the mountains. And if you think back, you will remember that when you came back from natural vacations, you felt better. You were happier. Your body felt better and you had more sex, which is important when you're in the age range in which you're supposed to be having sex. It's important. I have seen so many people and kids that have gone to places like Disney. Oh, it's great. You ask them, they go on the weekend, they come back, and on Wednesday you ask them what they did over the weekend, and they won't remember. How could you not remember? You were dying to go to Disney. You went to Disney. How could you not remember? Oh, yeah. We were at Disney. We had a great time. You didn't even remember it. By the way, electricity wipes out memory. That's what electroshock is. And that's what we're doing ourselves with our electronic devices. So the bad news is that we are going to have big problems because our soil, Earth, in the United States was electrified by 10,000 times. You can look it up in spaceweather.com. Now, how interesting, Florida is looking pretty good. And yet it really, you would think, oh, that has to do with water. I don't know, because the East Coast doesn't look good. Half of Texas looks good, and the other half looks really bad. As a matter of fact, one of the hottest places is kind of in central Texas. I don't know the Texas map, but I do know that we mapped it and Texas was cursed. And there was a huge, not friendly spaceship on top of it. So when there's too much fire, the protective energy field that God gave us, it's a frequency that is electric, gets burned, and then you don't have any protection. So this map can be called also a map to zombies, because that extra fire, no, fire is the food of the devil. And the devil type spirits, because there's different types of spirits, are the ones that turn human physical bodies into zombies, because the spirit that's inserted is that type of a spirit. I came to the conclusion today, probably for the 50th time, that if you were the type of person that if your kids said that they were scared to go to sleep because something was coming out from under the bed, behind the door, or from the closet, and you said that's not true, you just don't want to sleep, or just go ahead, let's get you some warm milk or whatever and go back to sleep, you are really going to struggle with the whole ET thing, with the whole zombie thing. It's a baseline piece of knowledge on planet Earth that spirits exist. Jesus Christ removed spirits when he went to heal people. Shamanism is about two things: spirits and the elements. Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine deal with both things. They won't admit it today because modern people that have money don't know anything about that. And the funny story, which is really, now that you think about it, pathetic, when I was living with an Ayurvedic physician many years ago, and he recommended that I get a painting of a beach scene and put it in my living room, I thought he was recommending a piece of decor so that my living room would look better. No, he was recommending that I get more water in my life and that I could get it from the transference from a painting or a picture. He didn't explain that part of it. I don't know if he was used to people just simply obeying and they didn't need to know. I have a desire to know, and I didn't think that he had better decorating skills than I did, because I could see what his bedroom looked like. Lack of knowledge. The Buddha said that the basis for human misery is ignorance, and that is 100% the case. So here is where we are at, or where we were at 2 days ago, or yesterday, not sure. I think we're getting ready to enter a birth canal for a rebirth. I'm only saying this because of what I'm sketching. But it's also what people have been saying that know a lot more than I do about the process that our soul and everything is going through. I believe this used to be triangular. It didn't have this, and now this is open at the top. And we also changed the music when I did this sketch. Instead of doing the trilling music that's so elegant, I felt it might be important to get more grounded. So I put the music that's called the El Poder de los Mantristas, which means the power of the Mantristas, which is the movement that has developed with around all of this information. And then the people were releasing a black snake, a spirit that was around the spinal cord. And this is releasing of the fire element. None of the lower chakra mind streams are there. So when we go through the birthing process, we're not going to have as much of a connection to the physical. Are we just going to be spirit? What happens to my business? What happens to the book I haven't published? I don't know. It might be a little bit disappointing, but I suspect that somehow or other, all of that we have done on the physical is not going to be a waste or in vain. I don't know what it looks like, and I made it a decision not to kind of look too much into the future, but to work on unblocking us so that we can get there more effectively, so that we can achieve our intentions. So they're talking a lot on X about how sound is a frequency and it heals incredibly. And I have been giving you my Fox sensory therapy sound rover. I'm changing the name because people are now wrapping themselves around the fact that sound heals, and they're not aware that images heal, such as what the Ayurvedic physician recommended for me. His name, by the way, was Dr. Akhilesh Sharma. So I'm changing it to Fox sound therapy, simple, to the point, so that people can get it. And then I'll go, oh, you're also getting image therapy. Spoon feeding? Okay, if that's what I have to do, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to show you now, again, we did it yesterday, but now with all this extra information, I'm going to show you again what sound therapy does, what we give you here, having to do with world peace, but it's not really world peace. It's simply peace and a purification of hatred. We're going to go back and we're going to do it again. So here we go. This was an experiment months ago. This is a person very depressed. Those are her mind streams hanging, very depressed. She was not doing a mantra. There was no music therapy. See, I have sensory therapy there. No, we have to put music therapy to make it really simple. Okay, then this entire experiment took 7 minutes. Then I went ahead and asked her to do the mantra for depression, which is, even though I'm depressed, I love and accept myself. No therapy, no music, no sound therapy. Okay, and look, her mind streams that were here, look how they got. This is wonderful. Then we went ahead and moved ahead 2 or 3 minutes later. I gave her the mantra for peace. Please, God, help me with my intention that there be a miraculous solution to the peace and fear. No sound therapy, just the mantra. Look how nice. She's got chi particles that pop up. The mind streams are not depressed. This is very good. But look what happens when we add sound therapy. There is a protection around the mind stream. See the green line? Creating a canopy. That bad spirit in the upper right cannot enter. The throat chakra starts to release Nile green mind streams. Something that was stuck in the throat started to release. Now, she was doing the trilling music therapy. Cancel the word sensory. It's accurate, but it doesn't work. Trilling music therapy. And look at that. In less than 7. And she didn't do 7 minutes of the therapy because until this point, she hadn't done any music therapy. She was doing a mantra or nothing at all. So if you don't have sounds that heal and purify in your spaces, your business, your home, you're being very silly. Because it's not just me that's saying it. And it's not just this as proof. It's like all over the internet now. Scientists are saying that sound heals. Several years ago, somebody, I don't remember what the question was that they asked them, and the song Despacito, which is from a Puerto Rican singer, I don't remember his name, was really big. So I said, look, why don't you go ahead and put the music, that music on, and have one of your producers stand in front of me, and I will look and see how that music affects them internally. The reason I chose Despacito is because I think at that point it was the most heard song in the history of the world. So they did that. And I have it on video, and I'm going to put it up again on Facebook and maybe here. But really, it's basically me crying. So the music comes on, the song, and the person is standing in front of me. And I could see his heart chakra energy center was opening, and he was crying. And I said, this song opens the heart chakra, and it helps people to release stuff. And I said to the producer, you miss your mother? Is she not here? And he said, she's in my country. I haven't seen her for a while, and I really love her. But listening to Despacito was opening up something that was closed because of his emotional pain. And he was releasing that, not just through the tears, but through emotions. So you need to trolley on up to this stuff that's old, but now it's no. Look what we've discovered. This is old. Sound therapy is like very old, from the beginning of time. That's why they use drums. Drums can take you to other dimensions if that's where you want to go. Okay. I think I wanted to do something else, but I forgot. But we're already at 21 minutes, and I'm not going to say this time that I talk too much. The map that I just showed you with the electrification is from spaceweather.com. I suggest you look it up. Where are you in that map in terms of your city or your state? If that map, I'm not sure that they did it for the whole world. But if they did, and you're in another country, because most of my followers are from other countries, you need to look up and see what it is that they say. But it doesn't really matter what the map said, because by law of attraction, that fire that came, more of it should have gone to the places that are heavily electrified. One of the people I admire the most was the man that wrote The Electrification, Dirty Electricity. The book he wrote was Dirty Electricity. An incredible book. He's a researcher. He's immaculate. It was not widely accepted because he gave us information we didn't like, which is that there's a direct connection between many diseases and too much electricity. We're going to see all of those diseases augment dramatically, one of which is cancer. So when people start screaming about cancer and it's due to this and to that and to the other and to the other, what you need to know is if there wasn't an excess fire, you couldn't get the cancer. It doesn't matter what they injected into you. Doesn't matter if you didn't have excess fire. You can't get cancer because cancer is a disease of excess fire. When you get down to the basics, to causal, which is what I am all about, what I try to teach, what I try to understand to make it simple. When you get down to causal, it's very simple. It is, as a matter of fact, too simple. I had a person, a very famous astrologer, and we had a client in common many years ago. And I remember one day I got very frustrated with my clients, and the astrologer called me later and said, listen, Francis, here's the problem. You make everything too simple. So then people don't accept it. It can't be that simple. She said, what you have to do is that the next time the client, I didn't do this, the next time the client calls you, what you do is that you say, oh, okay, I hear your question. I'll get back to you in 2 days. And then you go back and you fiddle, you do whatever the hell you want. And then in 2 days, you get back to them and tell them what you would have told them right then and there. Because you make it too simple. It's not possible. And I had another client who was very well known in this country for his marketing genius. I was very fortunate to meet him. And he had me read 4 or 5 businesses. And he was kind of like a friend. And he said, listen, I'm going to try to help you out and see how you can market your skills. Okay. So he said, read these 4 businesses, which were his. So it was an even exchange. And then when he finished, he said, okay, listen, you got a problem. And I went, okay, what's the problem? He said, it's too simple. It's too simple. You make it too simple. He said, that's a problem. He said the same thing. They ask you a question and you say, okay, I'm going to go and investigate. And you leave. And then 3 days later, a week later, you send them in a report of what you knew the first minute that they asked you. And I said, but that's not, he said, listen. And then he told me a story. He said, I'm going to just tell you a story. There was a nuclear plant that had a leak and it was dangerous. And the experts couldn't figure out where the leak was. So he was brought in and he was an expert and he was expensive and he brought in, and then he walked around the plant or whatever, and he kicked a couple of things and he went, okay, here's where the leak is. And he sent a bill for over $300,000. And they questioned him on the bill and they said, you were there 5 minutes. How can you send us a bill for $300,000? And he said, how much did you spend on the other experts? Did you give you the answer? I'm not charging you for time. I'm charging you for the correct answer. So it's complicated. When you get down to basics, it's very simple. If somebody has to keep hammering on something and going on and on and on in 20 different directions, they don't really have a grip on it, or they feel that you haven't really taken it in. But if they tell you and it's so simple, chances are you won't take it in, because it's supposed to be complicated, because everything that you know that's modern day and professional is very complicated. It doesn't need to be that way. That's the good news. So let's go ahead and let's do the mantra, and let's go ahead and do the Poder de los Mantristas, which is the one with the drumming, so that you can release stuff. I want you to be clean inside, and then it'll be easier for you to create peace in your life, which is a vibration, and your vibration will determine where you're going to end up. You're going to end up down here, burning up like those images of the apocalypse, because a lot of people will, or are you going to be lifted up because your vibration is lighter? So we're going to do that music, and we're going to do the peace mantra. So let's get the music first. And by the way, I was very excited when I saw that map. It's always nice to get a verification and something a little bit concrete of what I've been saying when I'm having a very hard time having people listen and believe and take it in. But not because they're going to give me money, but because it's going to make their life easier, which is what my goal is. So here's the music, and I will get the mantra up in a second. The mantras are repeated in silence, and you expel the breath through your mouth. Here we go. do you feel? And here is the golden white dress. When your vibration goes down, you see this dress sometimes in blue and black, or you see it less shiny. I used to be able to see it with a pink overlay. I can't see that anymore. I hope to get back to that. And I've always seen it gold and white, except many years ago when the controversy first started. One day I saw it in black and blue. And I thought, who changed the picture? Nobody changed the picture. I had had a rage attack and I had lowered my vibration by hanging on to all this anger. I don't remember what the situation was, but it doesn't really matter. I had more of the food for the devil inside of me, but it also lowered my vibration and made me incapable of seeing a dress that was made in gold and white. It's not a question of we're making the dress a particular color. The dress was a real dress and it was made in gold and white. I couldn't see the gold and white. I could see blue and black because of my frequency, my vibration, my hatred. So whatever that can mean to you, because I'm so tired of explaining things and sometimes feeling like I'm not really getting any place. So we will be back on Monday unless something incredibly interesting happens this weekend. But I think in my world, I think we're going to go through a birthing process that's going to be, as all birthing process, traumatic, and then we will be in the light. What does that mean? I don't really know. Shirley MacLaine wrote a book about what's coming next. I've never read it, and it's not that I'm recommending it, but perhaps she has some things to say there. In the Bible, it says that we will be entering the city of gold. And supposedly we're entering the golden age. And there we go with the gold dress. Are you going to be available for the golden age? Or are you still struggling with so many negative emotions because you have not purified the root cause of why things can affect you that much? And if they can affect you, is because at one point in your life they did. Chances are in your childhood, and they're a repeat from before other incarnations. So this is the whole reason why we spend so much time in the purification process, because that is the basis for your vibration, not your intentions. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if you have not purified the way you were physically abused as a child, or sexually abused, or your mother died when you were 3 years old, and you're still, you don't know it, you're a perfectly functioning adult, but it's still affecting you, then your vibration is lower and things will be more of a struggle. And if there's gold in front of you, you may not be able to see it. We will see each other then on Monday. And look up spaceweather.com and look up the map of the electrification of the United States from the 10th to the 11th of May due to the solar flares. All about the elements and the lack of balance. And remember that that map is going to be a map for the zombie apocalypse. Literally,